Hi there guys, I hope you are having a good day. Now let's talk about Gennady Golovkin. I recently spoke about Amir Khan and he is coming towards the end of his career and his hand speed is probably still what it was, but other aspects of boxing are starting to fail him as he gets to the tail end of his career. Obviously the hand speed is still there, but his feet aren't as fast as they once were, meaning perhaps he cannot get into range to make that hand speed count. Now let's talk about Gennady Golovkin and how it will affect him going late. He's not necessarily someone who has fast hands. He's a very powerful puncher, puts punches together very well. Now the thing about Gennady Golovkin and his style is it is one that ages better than one that relies on reflexes, because Golovkin is 38-39, so he's heading towards 40, whereas someone like Amir Khan is 33-34. So he is younger than Golovkin, but he is having similar problems, but different ones all the same. Amir Khan's comes from his foot speed, his hand speed is still there, but he doesn't have the same kind of ability when it comes to moving his feet, whereas Golovkin is a bit different. He's not someone who works off of reflexes. You don't see him with that dazzling head movement that, say, Canelo has when we see him in the ring, or say what we saw from Floyd Mayweather. Things are different for Gennady Golovkin. He is someone who can take punishment. He is someone who has a good positioning. You very rarely see him across his feet, which is a fundamental thing in boxing. So he has a good boxing stance, a good positioning, reasonable footwork, but he's durable and he can punch extremely hard. Great gas tank as well, and likes to pressure his opponent. Now, he recently fought a fighter called Derevyanchenko. Now, Derevyanchenko is similar in some ways to Gennady Golovkin, very tough, but it does work down to the body and has great success when he does do that. Derevyanchenko came close to hurting Gennady Golovkin. He had him in trouble. We haven't really seen that from Golovkin during his career, so can we deduce that it was the pressure and the ability of Derevyanchenko, the relentlessness, that cost him, or was it because Gennady Golovkin is coming to the end of his career and perhaps all of the punishment he has taken in fights with the likes of Canelo, that has caught up to him? I believe that that is the truth. I think that many fights over the course of his career, the tough fights, are starting to catch up with Gennady Golovkin. Now, when it gets to this point for fighters like Gennady Golovkin, and I spoke about it as well with Amir Khan, adjustments must be made. Amir Khan is someone who needs to realise he cannot fight the same way now as he did 5 or 6 years ago during the prime of his career, and the same applies for Gennady Golovkin. And he has changed trainer to Jonathan Banks, moving away from Abel Sanchez. So changes are in the works for Gennady Golovkin, but we haven't seen a real standout performance from him since he fought Canelo. Now, I know he did fight Kamil Szeremeta and got the stoppage in round 7. That was a good performance, but it was a different kind of performance to what we are used to with Gennady Golovkin. And I think that it was a performance where you could give Golovkin, say, an 8 out of 10. He was trying different things, and you could see after the Canelo fight, with the Steve Rolls fight, the Derevyanchenko fight, then the Szeremeta fight, things are starting to move into place for Gennady Golovkin. So whilst he's not a young, fresh fighter anymore, he is putting together a different kind of style that will aid him going forwards, because he cannot stand there and trade with his opponent and expect to be able to take blow for blow with that kind of opponent, especially at the level he wishes it to fight at. I mean, he wants to fight Canelo again, but I don't see that fight actually coming off, because Canelo is now a super middleweight and Golovkin is in the middleweight division. There was talk of Golovkin going up to super middleweight, but I don't really see that happening now. I believe that he will remain as a middleweight. It would be interesting to see what he could do going up to super middle, but he did make weight quite well last time around against Szeremeta. He looked good on the scales for the first time I've seen him look good on the scales for a couple of years actually, because Golovkin does sometimes look quite dry. This time around he looked good on the scales and he looked like he made the weight quite well, and that is important going forwards, because the last thing he wants at this stage of his career is to be draining down in weight and losing too much weight and then trying to rehydrate for fight night, because at this stage maybe his punch durability is slightly starting to dwindle. So if he is killing himself to make weight, then he is only giving more away to his opponent. So the important thing is he does get his weight right. And I mean, Golovkin apparently hasn't been one to get on the train of nutrition and training as well. he just trains for his fights. There are certain things like strength training which I don't believe Gennady Golovkin has done too much of before. He mainly focused on boxing when he was working with Abel Sanchez, but now he has strength and conditioning coaches coming in to help him going forwards in his career. So you can see as fighters go later, there are certain things they have to do, adjustments need to be made to ensure their longevity, such as getting strength and conditioning coaches in there to ensure that his weight is right, so that he can make weight and go back into the ring, rehydrate, and he's perfectly fine. He's not losing 10 or 20% before he even gets to the ring. That is very important for someone like a Gennady Golovkin. Also aiding in the prevention of injuries being sustained by Gennady Golovkin. So if we look at his last performance, he was holding center ring, he was backing his opponent up behind the jab, but he wasn't ferociously walking him down like we have seen him before. He was looking to box a lot more because Gennady Golovkin would be relentless when he was in there with his opponent, not allowing them a moment to rest. That was important to his success because he would just keep on him all the time, and eventually they would make a mistake or they would falter, get tired, something would happen. He was always looking to do that to his opponent, to break them down bit by bit, and eventually there was little they could do. I mean, if you look at the Kell Brook fight, I know that Kell Brook was a welterweight coming up to middleweight, but you could see the difference in how Golovkin just bullied him and pushed him back, took anything that Kell Brook would throw at him and continued to move forwards, and ended up breaking him down. That is why also he is such an entertaining fighter, but he was able to take the punishment and dish it out. At this stage of his career, he cannot rely on his punch durability to get him through the fights. The toughness does start to dwindle as their career reaches the tail end. And I think that we have seen that with Gennady Golovkin, and he does understand that. That is why he is adjusting. That is very important that the fighter does admit it as well, because if they believe that, they can just go in there and take the punishment and continue to dish out their own until the last man is standing. At some point, it won't be Gennady Golovkin. And he does know that. That is why the adjustments are being made now to ensure the longevity of his career so he can continue for as long as he wants to in the sport, and is looking to use the fundamentals as opposed to his toughness to get the victory in fights. I mean, Gennady Golovkin is an accomplished amateur, winning silver at the Athens Olympics and also winning gold at the Bangkok World Championships. So he's an accomplished amateur and has good boxing ability, so why not use that during this stage, because he can. It's not like he's the guy who can just rely on his toughness and that's all he has. He has other things he can revert to, and we are seeing that now with Gennady Golovkin. Guys, anyway, what are your thoughts on this, and who would you like to see Gennady Golovkin fight next? In my opinion, I'd like to see him in there with Munguia. That would be a great fight. Guys, drop your thoughts on this in the comments below. Also leave a like and grab that subscribe button. Thanks guys.